A lot of people look at the Constitution as though it's a suggestion, as though it is a city ordinance that you might obey it, you might ignore it, but it sets the framework for what makes America exceptional, right? I mean, it is what makes us different, is that we don't just lock people up and throw away the key. We make sure that nobody is convicted or executed even, without giving them a chance to defend themselves and prove that they're not the ones who committed the crime. But people find it really easy to say, here is a policy outcome that I want, and we're just going to make it happen and forget the Constitution. The Constitution was drafted by a bunch of dead white guys who are long gone. Well, but it's a set of principles that makes us different from the Russians. That makes us different from the Chinese. It is a belief in the difference of being a free people, where you establish your own government and the rules that you're going to live under. And that's why most of the powers are given to the Constitution, in the Constitution, to the Congress, because they're the people's representatives, and so they decide that we're going to go to war. And we don't go to war unless the people's representatives say we think we should go to war. We don't create new programs that are going to tax people, take away the money they earn, unless their representatives agree that's what we should do. And it is so easy to look for shortcuts. It is so easy to say, this is the outcome that I would like. Let's forget the rules. Let's just play it every day by, that's anarchy. You got to have a set of rules that say, here's what's permitted of the government, here's what's not permitted of the government. If you don't do that, then your liberty and security are totally dependent on who got elected last time. And we have a habit in this country with our elections. We're always throwing out the people we just elected. We do it every 2 years. We throw out the people we just elected. And you can't have a set of rules and guidelines and laws that are constantly changing, constantly in flux. You have to have a pattern for stability in your society, a pattern for making changes, for progress. And one of the things that drives me, I grew up loving this country. I grew up loving the Constitution. I grew up loving George Washington and Nathan Hale and Francis Marion and the people who created this great country, and Patrick Henry. And I don't want to say that we're no different from Bolivia. I don't want to say that America is no different from the Soviet Union. We could be so much more efficient if we were like China. And we just had a little ruling clique that told everybody what they could do. And decided, we don't like what this person did, we're going to lock them up, we're going to take their job, we're going to throw them in prison. I don't want us to be like that. When you say that the American people don't understand our constitutional system, that includes a lot of the people who are the American people who got elected to Congress. Who don't understand what their role is and what their obligation is under the Constitution. And so they too focus on what's the outcome we want, what's the kind of policy we would like because we're liberal or because we're conservative, as opposed to what are we permitted to do. And when I was in Congress, I saw many examples when members of Congress would push for a particular agenda item. And I would stand up and say, wow, that would be an outcome that I would like. The only problem is it's unconstitutional, and nobody would care. They would say, well, we'll do it. If it's unconstitutional, the courts will decide if it gets to court. But when you take an oath of office, the oath of office that every member of Congress takes is not to defend the Republican Party, not to protect the Democratic Party. The oath of office is to protect and defend the Constitution. And that gets lost. And one of the results of this is that people start saying, I don't like a particular thing in this country. Let's just amend the Constitution. Let's amend the Constitution to prohibit this or to demand that. And what you then have is, instead of this unique, magnificent document that has only one purpose, to protect liberty, to protect the rights of the people, you turn it into a big city ordinance, with no special significance or meaning, and is constantly changing. I get very bothered by the fact, if I were to say to you, who's the head of government? You, not you, but most people would say, well, the president's the head of government. Well, the president's not the head of government. We don't have a head of government. You know, we aren't one of those countries that have, we have three separate, independent, equal branches of government. What percentage of the American people know that? What percentage of the American people believe that the president is in charge of foreign policy? He's not in charge of foreign policy. You know, the president names the Supreme Court. No, he doesn't. He puts forth names. He says, this is who I would like to say is going to be our next Supreme Court justice. The Congress, the people's representatives, decide that. We have so many people in America who, because of our school system and our media, don't understand our government. They don't understand what our Constitution is, and they don't understand why it's that way. They don't understand why we have the protections. One of the things the founders did, the founders were really, really aware of history. They had, you know, they came over from Europe, a lot of them. They knew what it was like in those kinds of monarch-driven societies, and they said, we're not going to do that. We are not going to let that happen in America. They created a whole different system. They rejected the parliamentary system. They rejected the idea of kings. You know, they created a whole new thing that was focused only on giving control to the people themselves. And that's what the Constitution does. And when you lose that, you know, we are then subject to whatever this president wants or the next president wants, or this majority in Congress or that majority in Congress, or this special interest group that wants this particular outcome. The idea of us being a free people just gets lost.